Welcome back, everybody. We're back, and we're going to be talking about UFC Vegas 58, The Ultimate Fighter Season 30, which was on yesterday with the last, the first flyweight women's semifinal. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about, we're going to be opening up with this UFC 276, everything that happened there, and what I think should happen next. So, of course, we're going to open up with UFC 276. And let's just say the bets did not go that well this time. There's only one underdog on the entire card that won. Wow. Or at least, technically, I think the underdogs did maybe win more, but it was... if you went on Tapology and checked all the picks, because they give you a percentage of how many people picked which fighter to win, every single one of the favorites won except for this first fight that we're going to talk about, which is very unusual, which I'm not making excuses here, but yeah, that would probably be why we didn't do so well on the bets. But we'll move on. We'll open up with that first one. That was Stoliarenko, Jessica Rose Clark. And like I said, this was the only one that did surprise a lot of people. I wouldn't really say I was necessarily surprised. I did have this one as a 50-50 one myself. I was considering going with Stoliarenko, but I thought Jessica Rose Clark is the more well-rounded fighter. But anyway, not that I talked about it last time. But anyway, Clark wasted absolutely no time. She lit her up with some massive combos, stumbled her pretty bad, actually. From there, Stoli did recover, dragged Clark to the ground, and that was it. That's all she needed. That's all she wanted to do. Locked in a nasty armbar, and less than a few seconds into it, actually, I don't know if she snapped the arm in half. I don't think so, from what I've heard. I think it was just very badly dislocated. But yeah, it was literally bent in the opposite direction. It literally looked like this, but then imagine that going the opposite direction. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Too late to tap. She was tapping out, but it was like, my arm's already bent in the wrong direction. And of course, the ref stopped it pretty quickly after he saw that. And that was it. Just over a minute in, amazing submission. Really, really good. And of course, it wasn't the submission of the night, but it was definitely in the lead for quite a while, because that was insane. Then we did have the first prelim that I talked about last time, and that was Jessica Maycee Barber. Knew this was going to be fairly close, but I did go with Barber on that one. She started right away, pushed the grappling, which is exactly what we knew she was going to try and do, because I'm not necessarily the biggest fighter in the division, and did struggle with that in previous fights. Excuse me. But I actually did reverse her. I didn't. Jessica did. Wow, that was a terrible joke. And started to smother Barber along the fence, a little bit surprising. In spite of that worse position, though, Barber actually did slam some massive, massive elbows straight to the forehead of I there. And just, wow. Those were some heavy elbows. The eye started to, there was a huge welt up there. Oh my God. It was disgusting, really. Even though I did get the control time, with all that damage, and we've been talking about damage on the scorecards recently, with all that damage, it was pretty clear Maycee did grab that opening round. And then I tried to keep that control going. I should really just say Jessica, because it's confusing, because it sounds like I'm doing it. Not that I would ever want to fight Maycee Barber. Jessica tried to keep that control going in the second round, pinned Barber along the fence, and they kept swapping positions from there, but it was ultimately Jessica that did steal that momentum, finally dragged Barber to the ground. And with that control, I would say it was a pretty clear 1-to-1 fight at that point. Barber did want to avoid the clinch after that, and it made sense. I mean, you keep getting stuck in that position, and yeah, landed the elbows, of course, but you keep getting stuck there, and then want to get out of it from there. Barber seemed to have the biggest moment of the fight from there. Slammed some hammer fists into Jessica as she was trying to take her down. It was close, back and forth that round, but I did give it to Barber. I scored it 29-28, and two of the judges did agree. They had it 29-28, 29-28, and then one of them had it 30-27. And that was easily that is in the lead for the worst judges card of the month so far, because honestly, there is absolutely no way that you could make an argument that Barber won the second round, because she did absolutely nothing. She was on the ground, in the bottom position on the ground, didn't really land much in the striking. I don't know what the judge was thinking there, but that was bizarre. But anyway, um, fairly good dominant. Well, not I wouldn't say dominant necessarily, but fairly good decision win for Barber. And you know what? That's a tough opponent. Jessica, I may have lost how many in a row now? 1-3. So 1-4 now. You know, not necessarily great, but you know what? They've been pretty tough opponents there. And yeah, actually, yeah, that was the first retirement of the night. It was not the only one, sadly. And I gotta say, I was actually, I don't know if I was necessarily completely surprised, but again, it's kind of tough to see, because it's like, well, yeah, they've lost. She went 1-4 now, but they've all been top people, so it's not like she just can't compete anymore. She just probably would be, one of those gatekeeper people that we talk about a lot, near the bottom of the top 15, or maybe just out of it or something like that. But I guess, also getting a little bit older, I get it, But still, it's just tough to see, because, you know, especially in the women's divisions, because there's not a whole lot of really well-rounded, talented people. So it's always tough to see one of them go out. And obviously Joanna would be the biggest one recently that happened with. That was rough to see, but again, I get it. And she's not the kind of person that is okay with losing and not competing to be the best. So from that point of view, from that perspective, I totally get it. But as a fan though, it does suck to see, because you want to see them compete and win again inside the UFC there. And it's the same thing with Jessica. I mean, she could have easily competed still in the bottom of the top 15 there, defended the top 15 from getting, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, I don't know. It just sucks to see. Anyway, after that, Andre Muniz, I should say, and Uriah Hall. I thought we were going to see a finish here. I really did, from Muniz. But you know what? He pretty clearly dominated the fight here, and we saw why he was such a heavy favorite. It did start off a little slow, but Muniz did have that first significant moment. Hit Hall with a head kick and a crisp combo. After doing a little bit of striking, Muniz got his plan going, dragged Hall to the ground, and started fighting for that submission. Did that in the second round, did the same thing, started to attack those submissions from the back, worked for a rear naked choke, pretty clearly 2 rounds up going into the final round there. And Muniz did the exact same thing in the third round, took Hall down pretty early. Muniz wasn't really threatening the finishes all that hard in the third round, at least, but Hall just really couldn't do anything to free himself whatsoever. I mean, it was a little bit boring. Let's just say that, but a pretty dominant, clear win for Andre Muniz. And, that's exactly what we expected to see. Just maybe we thought there was going to be a finish there, but that's okay. That's okay. Still very dominant. And now, of course, a little bit higher in the top 15 there. I did not check as to where he ended up. I can't remember, but lots of movement, of course, in that division. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later, of course, because we also saw, yes, we saw the title, but we also saw, of course, Pereira and Strickland, but we'll talk about that later. And that, of course, led to a lot of movement as well. Just that whole division. If you check the rankings on the UFC website, they're all over the place. It moved, I think, over half of the division ended up moving. You don't normally see that in 1 week. That was crazy. Anyway, next one that we talked about, and this one we talked about last time, and we knew this was going to be close. This was Brad Tavares, Dricus du Plessis. I had Tavares, but I said, I knew it was going to be super close. I had Tavares by decision because I just wasn't really all that impressed with how du Plessis was looking, and I figured he would probably get pretty tired. He's got a really awkward looking style that I really didn't think was going to start working when you got into the top 15. And of course, Tavares, he's got the experience. He had a bit of extra speed. I thought he had a little bit of better striking skills because, more tight. It was definitely more technical striking as opposed to the wild striking of du Plessis, which can help, and it did help in this scenario. But it definitely does not always help, especially when you've got somebody super technical. But again, we knew this was going to be close because Tavares isn't necessarily, like one of the super like amazing fighters. He is good though. Again, I did have him, so it's not like I think he's bad or anything. But anyway, neither one of them wasted any time, but Tavares actually did land first, smoked du Plessis with a big combo. From there, du Plessis actually tried to avoid the striking and get a clinch going, but that was actually bad mistake there. Tavares ended up on top of him from there, and he did get back up, worked harder in the clinch, landed a pretty big strike, but to me, seemed like Tavares won that round on the cards there. So won the first round. So I thought, hey, we were looking good there. We were looking good. But then it didn't. That's when it started to go downhill for our pick here. Du Plessis came hard in the second round, ran straight at Tavares with these absolutely wild combos, busted up Brad's face from there, and started to really back him up. And it did get pretty rough a couple of times there, with Tavares wobbling around the octagon. But that was another reason why I picked him in the first place, because I knew he was going to be this tough, this insanely tough. So I thought the cardio would have pulled him on, and in the third round, he probably could have gotten it back. But anyway, obviously, second round goes to du Plessis. They're huge, insane striking, destroyed Tavares's face. I mean, there was starting to be blood everywhere here. The final round, Tavares was looking a bit rough with all the everything on his face there. Du Plessis started to slow down in the third, which is exactly, like I said, what we thought was going to happen. But du Plessis was still landing the much bigger shots, and that's really what I didn't see happening. I didn't think he was going to be able to land that well anymore because, he was going to be tired. He throws powerful shots. I didn't think he was going to still be landing those shots at that point. Du Plessis did seem to struggle with his cardio, but Tavares just seemed to be done. And I think it was really all, you kind of figure it was probably all that damage in the second round. So because of all that damage in the second round, didn't really have that stamina anymore in the final round. And I wouldn't say that he gave up necessarily, but it definitely didn't seem like he was going to be coming back. So the third round clearly went to du Plessis. So I scored that a pretty clear 29-28 for du Plessis. And the judges all agreed, all scoring it, of course, 29-28. Very, very good win. I was impressed. I really was. because I knew how good Brad Tavares was. A lot of people maybe not necessarily thinking he's that good. I knew he was that good, and he did win the opening round. But yeah, I mean, Duplessis did look very, very good, and I was definitely impressed. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him from here. That's for sure. After that, Ian Gary and Gabe Green. I'm not going to lie. I was a little worried about Ian Gary here going into it. It's why I didn't talk about this matchup in the last stream. But I did pick him. I did pick him on Tapology, and I did, of course, bet on him. But I wasn't sure because I also knew how good Gabe Green was going into it. And Green did start with that pressure early, made Gary back up along the fence. Both of them were doing pretty well, though. Landed some heavy kicks, some quick combos. And then after landing a crisp jab, thanks to all that length, that height, Gary started to walk forward with his own pressure there. And as the round went on, Gary really started to pick him apart, landing a lot of jabs, busted open Green's nose there. And as the round was pretty close, but I mean, as it went on, Gary really did start to walk away with it. So I definitely scored the round for him. That is for sure. And Green tried to avoid that striking in the second round, tried to move it to the canvas. He did have Gary pinned along the fence, but Gary actually found himself on top, amazingly, which of course forced Green to move it back to the feet. And Green actually did start to get a little bit better there, but I still think I'm pretty sure I must have scored it because I said it was 30-27. So I did score it for Gary, but it was very, very close there. From there, the third round, though, that's where it got a little crazier, especially for Gary. He landed a fantastic jab, dropped Green on his back there. He did recover, worked his way towards getting this fight to the canvas again. But Gary did a great job of shutting that down. The rest of the round was pretty close. But I mean, the striking, especially with the knockdown there, obviously gave that one to Gary. And the judges all scored it 30-27 for Ian Gary. I'm still not convinced that he's going to be making any kind of top 15 run anytime soon. I really don't think so. And I feel kind of the same way about Patty the Batty. I'm not going to lie. I'm not saying they're overhyped because I do like them, especially Patty. I mean, obviously he's hyped up even more, but I don't think either one of them, and I know neither one of them can crack the top 15 right now. So, a couple more years and they can definitely get there, but I don't know. I'm just not overly impressed with either one of them yet. Especially Gary though. Yeah, I hate to say it because he looked good here, but it's still like anybody in the top 15 would absolutely destroy him. I'm pretty sure. After that, we had another prelim that I had talked about last time, and that was Cowboy and Jim Miller. I had Cowboy by decision going into this. I think everything really, to be honest, was going towards Cowboy. I still stand by picking him. I really do. Maybe not the case with a couple other ones that I picked last time. I will say I probably should have picked Dricus, probably should have picked Turner. But this one I really do stand by. I stand by picking Cowboy. I really do because he was doing very well at the start of the fight. Both of them did take it easy to start, threw out some combos, but not really landing anything crazy. And we knew that. I didn't think there was really going to be a finish in this fight, obviously. I did say it was going to end in a decision because they're both pretty tough. Cerrone was the one edging ahead in that department, which led Miller to take him down to the ground. It was looking a bit rough for Cowboy on the bottom, but used his strength, all of his skill, actually reversed Miller, and I would say pretty clearly took the round on the card. So like I said, did definitely win that first round, and it was looking fantastic for him. And right at the start of the second round, I would say more so than anything, it was just really unlucky because I've never seen anything. I've never seen this before. They both threw head kicks at the exact same time. And it just so happened that Cowboy he didn't even really get kicked that hard. It was just more so that he got kicked, lost his balance a little bit, and fell backwards. And that was really all Miller needed. I mean, from there, um, Miller grabbed onto the guillotine, and that was it. That was it. Cowboy held on for a little while, but was forced to tap pretty quick there. And now, of course, we saw Miller is now the winningest fighter in the UFC with 24 wins, most wins in UFC history. And sadly, a little bit surprisingly, I will say, well, maybe not. Cowboy took off his hat and his gloves, and that marks the end of Cowboy's UFC journey as a fighter. At least maybe he'll be coaching. Who knows? Yeah, after an amazing career. And that's really another one that sucks. That it's another retirement that sucks to see. The second retirement of the night, I should say, too. Yeah, because he's still good. He's still good. He's still competing. And he, like I said, he was winning that fight. And honestly, just got really unlucky. There's nothing really else to say. I mean, they both kicked each other at the same time. Cerrone just happened to be the guy that got knocked off balance a little bit. Miller ran in for the guillotine, and that was it. Just couldn't do anything about it. I mean, if that double head kick wouldn't have happened, probably would have been a completely different story. I really do believe that. But anyway, that's just what happens. That's just what happens. You can't see that. You can't predict anything like that happening. Yeah. And it sucks to see his career end that way. I would have even expected that, hey, if he wins this one, beats Miller, becomes the winningest fighter in UFC history, at least for this one fight, beats Jim Miller, and then rides off into the sunset as a Cowboy, of course. But that's not meant to be, sadly. I was really hoping he was going to get that last win, but sadly did not get it. But I hope we see Cowboy again as a coach or something. Something. I don't know. We got to see him again. Then we had the last prelim that I had talked about last time. That was Brad Riddell, Jalen Turner. Again, I did have Riddell on this one by decision, and about 5 seconds into it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is not good. Right away, Turner landed a bomb, stunned Riddell, and Turner jumped onto an insane guillotine at that point. And because they were still so dry, Riddell was rocked, just absolutely had no chance whatsoever to get out of it. And less than a minute in, it was already over. Yeah, you know what? There you go. Hats off to him. Because in the other fights, Turner looked decent, but he didn't look that great. He never looked like, oh, this guy's going to be insanely good. I never really got that from any of his fights whatsoever. Whereas Riddell, I mean, he was doing really well against Fiziev, who's headlining tonight. I mean, not tonight, on Saturday, which we're going to be talking about. Yeah, so it just seemed like everything was pointing towards Riddell, especially considering how tough Riddell is. But that really just goes to show you how good Turner actually is. That's what I learned from this. I mean, maybe Riddell, not quite as necessarily good as I thought, or maybe he just got caught by something he didn't see. I don't know. But really impressed by Turner on this one. Amazing. I mean, you really couldn't have done better than that. And he was in the top 15, and now he's in the top 15. I mean, what else can you say? It was just an amazing performance, and he is very much going to be a huge huge problem in that division because, I mean, the length, the power, the skill too to do that. I mean, it's just insane. And I seriously don't even know how he makes weight. I really don't. I mean, he's so big. He is so big. It's insane. Then we had the main card, and we thought, my God, did we think this was going to be an insane main card? And it really looked like it was going to be unbelievable. Looked like it was going to easily be the best main card of the year so far. And the first one, the first matchup really set the tone for how this was going to end up. Yeah, I mean, of course, Pedro Munhoz and Suga Sean O'Malley, of course, opened it up. Of course, like pretty much everybody else, I did have Suga, and I did have him by finish actually too. And technically, Munhoz did not make it out of the fight, so I wasn't completely wrong. Um, but yeah, I mean, nobody obviously could have seen this one coming. But I did know it was, we knew it was going to be close, but that O'Malley was going to eventually take over the striking and then get a finish, or at least just shred through Munhoz and drop him multiple times. That's what it seemed like was going to be inevitable. Both of them did take it pretty slow early, only throwing the odd leg kick here and there, both of them. This continued throughout the round with neither one of them really doing anything significant. It was hard to tell who won the opening round, but I did give it to Munhoz. Like, I think all of the judges, or 2 out of the 3 judges maybe, did give it to Munhoz the opening round. I did too. The extra activity, you kind of had to give it to him. But, you know, people were saying, "Oh, that's because Sugar's not that good." Like, no, that was his strategy going into it, and you could kind of tell that. Like, even as it was happening, I was like, "Okay, I know what he's doing here. He's just trying to download, as they say, what Munhoz was like with his striking, and then the second round, Sugar was going to come in." And then start to really work with that striking. And that is actually what he did. He started to land his combos, nothing too crazy, but he did start to land some combos. And then, then we saw the eye poke. I wouldn't really call it a poke. It was more like a paw. And he did have his fingers out. You can't even really say that Suga did anything wrong, really. I mean, just a completely unfortunate event, really. I mean, yeah, that's about as light of an eye poke as you could possibly have. I really do, because on the replay, I mean, I like everybody else, I kind of thought, well, this is garbage. Like, is that even an eye poke? Like, I mean, it was that light. It was literally like, like, okay, oops. It really didn't look like anything whatsoever. Um, Didn't really want to discredit Munhoz, but it did, it kind of looked like he was exaggerating a little bit. Of course, um, yeah, but Munhoz did say, I mean, we'll talk about what happened after that but Munhoz did say, oh, he couldn't see, so of course the doctor had no choice but to stop it. You can't do anything about that. Did it look like he was exaggerating? Yes, of course it did. But then we found out, and I read this online a couple days ago, if you looked online, he did actually post the medical report, and the doctor actually did say he did scratch his cornea. So that's pretty bad. Yeah. So definitely didn't fake it, definitely did not exaggerate. You can't fight somebody, especially like that, especially somebody as good as Suga, who was going to start probably running away with it. Yeah, you can't fight somebody like that with one eye. That's not a good idea. So I kind of, would we have respected Munhoz more if he would have kept going with the fight? Yes, but at the same time, it's like, do I understand that? And would I probably have done the same thing myself? Yes. Yes, I probably would have said, "Yeah, I'm out. I can't see out of one of my eyes. I do not want to fight one of the best strikers like that. No, thank you." So I totally understand. And of course, it ended up being a no contest. Very disappointing, but it does make sense. It does make sense. But a shitty way to open up the main card when we were expecting an insane fight. I mean, that was to me probably the second best fight on the card on paper. Of course, behind Volkanovski and Holloway. That was obviously still the best fight on paper. Anyway, after that disappointing start to the main card, we had Robbie Lawler and Bryan Barberena. Again, like a lot of people, I did have Robbie Lawler because of the experience, because of his pressure, his skill, his power, really everything was pointing towards Lawler on this one. But we knew it was going to be fairly close because neither one of them likes to give up at all. Neither one of them has any quit in them. So, of course, we knew this was going to be close. And also, as we expected, they both let it go right away. Combo after combo right away. Insane. Obviously, this ended up being the fight of the night for me. And I believe it also got a bonus from the UFC as well. Just an insane fight. Both of them landing some great shots. Lawler did seem to be the one that was landing the much, much heavier shots in the first round. It was an insane round. It was very even, but I did give it to Lawler. And like I said, and this was another pick that I really still stand by. I really do. I mean, he was looking good early. It was looking like he was going to win the fight just by slowly, well, not necessarily slowly because they were going at it pretty hard, but picking apart Barberena as the fight went on. That's what it seemed like was going to happen, which is exactly what I thought was going to happen, but that's not what happened eventually. Whoops. Yeah, Barberena came out hot in the second round, blitzed Lawler. Lawler did counter, brought it back to his own pace. As the round went on, it seemed as though Lawler was starting to slow down a bit, and that is where he had some problems. Using that to his advantage, Barberena started to throw elbow after elbow. I mean, there were elbows everywhere. It was insane. I had to be at least 15 or 20 elbows. It was, you don't normally see that. It's crazy to watch. It really is. And Lawler just couldn't take it anymore. After getting pretty lit up, he was stumbling, almost fell down, forcing the ref to step in and give Ryan Barberena the TKO. Bryan, oh, whoops. Wow, that's a bad typo. To give Bryan the TKO win there. And I'll say, you know what? I think that was mostly because Lawler believed too much in his toughness, I would say, because they weren't really the hardest shots to avoid. He could have definitely avoided them, but he just took them and then tried to land some of his own. And when you're like 25 or 30, maybe that's a strategy that can work, but not at this stage in your career. It just doesn't work like that anymore. And I don't think that Lawler fully believed that and fully respected Barberena's power. And that is why I'm pretty sure that's what led to this happening. Because like I said, the first round, Lawler definitely was pulling up ahead there. But yeah. Yeah. And that is tough to see. It honestly kind of looked like maybe we were going to see another retirement there. I would have been pretty pissed. I think it seems like he'll be back, though. It seems like he'll be back. And I really hope he does come back because he did look really good. Just got lit up a little bit too hard, believed in that chin maybe a little bit too much, and paid the price. It's sad to see. I was really hoping Lawler was going to get that because he's a great guy and we need to see him win again. I mean, you know, it's been rough. It's been rough for Lawler recently. Since losing that belt, of course. After that, of course, the last non-title fight of the evening, Sean Strickland, Alex Pereira. I wouldn't really say that I underestimated Pereira, but I would say that I definitely overestimated what Sean Strickland was going to do. Because I think the pretty clear strategy here was to grapple Pereira. I think that was pretty obvious, especially when you train with Marvin Vettori. And I said this in the last stream. That's why I thought he was going to win, because Strickland can grapple, even though he doesn't show it necessarily. And he did not even attempt to grapple, didn't even try, didn't even give a whiff that he was going to start grappling anytime soon. So, yeah, that was disappointing. So, I really thought he was going to be better than that. I don't know why, because Strickland is a lunatic. So I should have known that he was going to just do whatever he felt like and go in for the brawl. I should have known he was going to do that. But I just assumed that, hey, the coaching and then Marvin Vettori, they were going to tell him, like, drill into his head, grappling, 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 do the grappling. But he did not do that. Did not do that at all. Strickland, of course, was walking him down, pushing the pace, as he always does. But he should have used that pressure to go for the grappling, and he didn't. Anyway, neither one of them got anything going right away. It did start pretty slow, but that ended pretty quick. Really, the first massive punch that Pereira threw dropped Strickland right away. He had his hands a little low, and I mean, he always fights like that, and you can't do that against a guy like this. And a quick couple of follow-up shots, and that was it. I mean, didn't stand a chance. You can't fight somebody. You can't do a strategy like that. Yeah, I would say just an awful game plan going into it. I don't know if that was the game plan. We'd of course have to talk to the to the coaches to see if that was the game plan. I'm sure it wasn't. Maybe it was. I don't know. But whatever it was, terrible execution. Didn't even try. Like I said, didn't even try. Didn't even hint that he was going to be even attempting anything, any grappling, anything at all. So yeah, that was not great. Not great for Strickland. And Pereira, fantastic, of course. So of course, they've basically already agreed to it. Next fight for both Izzy and Pereira is that title fight. We can talk a little bit about that after we talk about Izzy. So we're going to drop this for now. But yeah, that is obviously what is next. The co-main, the featherweight title. Oh my God. Holy shit. I mean, like most people, I did have Volkanovski on this one. And I did say, I didn't think this was going to be the closest one. I think we all kind of knew the second one. If you were at least paying attention, you'd kind of know that the second one was about as close as it was going to get. Because Volkanovski has just been getting better and better, especially in the striking. I really thought, though, that the smarter way to do it would have been to do a grappling heavy strategy, because then you definitely would have won without taking any damage or anything. But you know what? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares about the grappling when you can do that to one of the best strikers in UFC history? I mean, I wouldn't say that he made him look bad. He kind of did, though. I mean, seriously, probably the best striking, probably one of the best striking displays that has ever happened right there. I mean, just incredible by Volkanovski. I mean, like, Holloway is pound for pound. He's on the top 15 pound for pound list for a reason. And he made him look like he shouldn't even be in that kind of conversation at all. That is how good Volkanovski was right there. We're going to talk about the fight, though. I mean, obviously picked it up right where the other fights left off. No waiting period at all. Why would you? You've spent 10 rounds with your opponent. Just go into it right away. And that's exactly what they did. Both of them did land some pretty crisp, clean shots, but Volkanovski was landing the much bigger shots. So that was in the first round. The second round started with the same thing. Volk landing at a much heavier pace, really picking Holloway apart. And then as Holloway ran in, Alex dragged him into a clinch. along the fence. Didn't really get it to the ground, but he landed a nasty, nasty elbow. And from there, he just kept the striking going. Landed a huge cut. I mean, a huge hook, I should say. Cut open Holloway bad, like really bad, to the point that it was like, I don't know if Holloway's going to make it through this fight, really. I mean, I know the doctors are pretty lenient when it gets to a title fight, especially. I mean, any 5-round fight, they're pretty lenient about that kind of thing. But it was so bad that I was like, oh, this is already the second round and we're going this way. Oh boy. Oh boy. I don't know. I don't know. This might be the first time that Holloway gets finished by punches here. Yeah, so clearly 2 out, up 2-0 for Volkanovski there. Momentum kept going towards Volkanovski as he started to land more and more. Holloway, though, again, legendary. I mean, no chin has stood up to that much damage ever. I mean, that is absolutely insane. Seriously, never even wobbled. I don't think he wobbled Holloway once or stunned him at all. Like maybe stunned him a little bit where he was like, "Oh, whoa, okay." But he never like no losing a balance, no spaghetti legs. Definitely didn't wasn't even close to knocking him down. And landed just punch after punch. I mean, it's insane. I just, it's beyond belief really that Holloway can stand up to that much damage and not even get wobbled. I mean, it was seriously just insane to see. Anyway, unbelievably though, doctor still wasn't even brought in actually to look at that cut. Even after the third round, and it was bleeding pretty bad, pretty bad. The fourth round, really just more striking dominance, shredded Max apart with all these combos and jabs. Trying to get something new going because the striking really wasn't working. Holloway tried to open the final round with a takedown attempt. Pretty desperate, I mean, because, you know, I even said going into it, I thought that was going to be Volk's plan, was grappling. So, I mean, definitely Holloway was not going to be able to do anything. Alex did shut that down pretty quick, obviously. Went back to the striking. Closing out the fight, Holloway's face was just covered in blood. His eyes starting to shut because they were swelling up so much. Volk never did get that knockdown he was shooting for, but I mean, wow. Wow. Just seriously an absolute masterclass of striking. I really don't think he could have done any better in the striking. I really don't think I honestly don't know how he could have possibly done any better than that. He was that good. Like he was that good that I seriously don't think you could have done anything better against somebody like Holloway. Just absolutely insane. And what does that mean now? I mean, for one, I have no idea how he's not the number one pound for pound. I said that last time. I said he should have been number one pound for pound after the Korean Zombie one. Honestly, you could have even argued it after the Ortega one, really. But especially after that Korean Zombie one, I thought he was going to be number one pound for pound. And definitely after this one, really thought he was going to be number one pound for pound. They still denied it to him, though. He's still number 2 on that list, right behind Usman, I believe it is. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little weird to me. He clearly deserves it. I mean, he just just didn't even give Holloway a chance at all. Like, Holloway had no chance at any point in that fight, really. I mean, like, yes, of course, somebody that good always has a chance, but, you know, it just, he didn't give him any room whatsoever. Holloway never really landed anything that was that convincing, you know? So it's like, you know, like you do that to somebody like that. And it's like, how are you not number one pound for pound? Especially considering like nobody's even really coming close at this point to dethroning you. So, I mean, I would say pretty clearly next, he seems to clearly want to go up to 155. There's really nobody at 145 that's doing anything insane. You know, like Emmett's looked good. The kickboxer guy, Arnold Allen, he's looking good. Iavloyev looking great too, but I think one more fight between two of those three people. Oh, and then of course you've got Yair and Ortega. So you've got them in the conversation too, especially since Yair hasn't had that opportunity yet. If he wins, that would be a pretty clear opponent, actually, I would say. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. You could easily see Volk fight one of those guys, but 155 does seem like a pretty clear way to go, especially, we do have the vacant title. So Volk and Oliveira, that makes sense. You could do that for the vacant title. Because we're still going to be waiting, of course, for Islam and probably, I don't know if Islam's getting that title shot. I don't know. We haven't really, we don't have anything completely confirmed yet. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens. That whole division is up in the air. So whatever it is, but it would make sense though. Cause I mean, Volkanovski deserves nothing less than the title shot. And also, like Oliveira has also been promised, of course, the next title shot, of course, too, because he is technically, I mean, he's kind of the champ, but he's not really. So I don't know. But he is the champ, pretty much. So obviously he's getting the title shot next. So I would think that would be amazing. I don't even know who wins that. I really don't. I don't, because Oliveira is massive for 155. So there's definitely the size, but Volkanovski is probably the best striker there is around right now. So I don't know. I don't know how that one ends up. Really, I really don't. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. The BLÜ bonuses, of course. The KO of the night had to be Alex Pereira. Oh, actually, what am I talking about? There's still one more fight. That was not the last fight. It was the last interesting fight of the night, that's for sure. The last fight, the main event. My God, I can't believe I forgot. Izzy and Jared Cannonier, of course. Of course, I had not Cannonier. Of course, I had Izzy going into this fight. I really thought he was going to get the finish. I thought we were done with all these boring decisions. I thought we were past that. I thought Izzy was past that and he was going to do something crazy. I really did. I really thought he was going to do it this time. I've kind of lost all faith in that. I really did. The champ was pretty patient early, trying to get a good read on Cannonier. And I do expect that, the first round or two, I expect him to be slow. And I'm totally okay with that. But then you kind of think he's going to pick it up from there and land the power shots. And he never did that. And he did say he was trying to, but he couldn't land the power shots. He was getting very good results with the setups. And I totally agree. I actually do agree with what he said about the fight after. And I realized I should probably finish talking about the fight before I talk about what he said about the fight. After a few minutes of that feeling out, he did start to get to work, popped Jared with some crisp jabs. It was a tight round thanks to the early activity of Cannonier, but I did kind of think that Izzy did grab that first round. The second round started off just as even. Neither guy really landed anything significant. As the round went on, though, Adesanya did start to get more active, landed the crisp jabs, but nothing too crazy. So kind of seemed like probably 2-0 for Izzy at that point. Cannonier opened the third, landed his first big strikes of the fight. Didn't seem to phase the champ, but he also did end up trying to take the fight to the ground with a clinch, but was shut down pretty easily. Even though he didn't necessarily succeed at moving the fight to the ground, it seemed as though, I would say fairly clearly, to be honest, that Cannonier won that round thanks to the clinch control and the extra strikes. So I thought it was pretty clearly 2-1 for Izzy at that point. The fourth round, the champ started to get into his groove, moving in and out, picking Cannonier apart with the strikes. And that was really when you could tell, like, okay, maybe he's going to start doing something here. Didn't quite do that, though. Jared went for another clinch along the fence. Still couldn't really get anything going with it, but it was pretty close, but seemed again like Izzy just barely edged ahead. I don't want to say he was point fighting, but on the outside, that's kind of what it looked like he was doing. I know that's not what he was trying to do, but that is the end result of it, is he was kind of point fighting him. So clearly 3-1 up on the cards in my mind for sure. The final round, Cannonier slowing down. Adesanya started to push the pace a little bit more. From there, Cannonier pushed into Izzy, pinned him along the fence. Did get about a minute of control time, but that was about it. From there, though, they separated. Jared landed a couple of pretty big strikes, and that was it. And really, I mean, when I was watching it, it really was close. And if a judge maybe zoned out for a minute or 30 seconds here and there, didn't see what was going on necessarily, or maybe with giving Cannonier the benefit of the doubt, I don't know. It really could have gone either way. Like with some other judges, I really could have seen it going uh if not to Jared 3-2, definitely for Izzy 3-2. It really was that close. I mean, I scored it. I kind of scored it 48-47. I really did. It was that close. It really was. People kind of, well, actually, no, I think people realize how close it was. But yeah, the judges scored it 49-46, 49-46, and 50-45. That one was a little bit weird for Adesanya. I would say that was probably the result of just giving the champ the benefit of the doubt on that one. And you know what? That's fair. Like, I don't have a problem with 49-46 at all. It makes sense. Like I said, the last 3 rounds, pretty back and forth. But I will say, I definitely don't think it was 50-45. I really don't think it was 50-45. I would say the one round was fairly clearly Cannonier on that one. But yeah, just really weird. Like, I don't know. Like, I kind of agree though with how Izzy explained it. He said, I obviously wasn't trying to to point fight like that. He was trying to get the finish. It's just he couldn't land any of the power shots. He was getting the setup going, but he couldn't get the power going. And I did see that kind of happening, because I saw, oh, okay, he seems like he's about to land a power shot here. He's pretty close, picking him apart early, and then he just never got the big power shot. So I actually kind of agree with what Izzy said on that one. I do kind of see that he was trying to do that, but still, it's kind of like you kind of want to see him take a little bit more of a risk to get that finish, because he's so clearly good enough that he can do it. And this was the perfect opportunity to show that, because there was only really one round where it was like, okay, Jared probably won that. Yeah, I don't know. Which is a little bit concerning when, like I said, what you're going to fight Alex Pereira again. That's going to be the next title fight, clearly. And I mean, we all know what happened already. We all know Pereira beat Izzy twice in kickboxing, knocked him out once, I think, and the other one was, I think, a decision. I can't remember, but I think that's what it said when I looked it up. I haven't watched them yet. I will definitely before before this fight happens. But it's concerning, because it's like he's not even getting finishes over. He is winning dominantly, let's say. Like, he's winning easily, even though he's not doing anything crazy. But I just don't think that that's enough. I don't think that's enough for somebody like Pereira, especially when he's an equal, if not a better striker than Izzy. So how is Izzy going to handle that? Is he going to strike with him but just make a more of an MMA approach to it, of course? Or are you going to grapple a little bit more, knowing that Pereira probably doesn't have that as well as you do? That's probably the plan, but I don't know. Like, that's going to be a really tough one. And I don't know how I'm going to go on that. I really don't. I have no idea how I'm going to pick on that one. I am maybe actually leaning towards Pereira on that one, but it's so close. It is very, very close. I gotta say, I'm really not sure about that one. But anyway, that's in the future. We'll talk about that months from now, whenever they schedule that. Probably, you know what? I'm just guessing it's probably going to be in December or maybe November. That's usually what they do. With high profile title fights like that. They save them for the end of the year, November, December. There's a lot of high profile title fights every year at that around that time of year. So that makes a lot of sense. But yeah. What was I going to say? The blue bonuses, the bonuses, of course. Alex Pereira, of course, got knockout of the night. I mean, you knock out Sean Strickland like that, you're obviously getting a bonus. That was insane. Sub of the night, Jalen Turner, I would say was a pretty clear choice. I mean, Riddell is no slouch at all. So to beat him like that in about a minute, that's pure insanity. So of course I gave him a bonus for that. The brawl of the night, also pretty clear. Lawler, Barberena. The only one that was like, wow, like both of these guys are giving it everything. This is insane to watch. That was the only fight of the night where that was happening. So I had to give it to that one. And most valuable fighter, I would say pretty clearly the number one pound for pound fighter, of course, Alexander Volkanovski. I gave him the most valuable fighter for sure. And it wasn't even a contest for me. I mean, there is literally no more valuable fighter in the UFC right now, in my mind, than Alex Volkanovski. Seriously. I mean, just absolutely dominant. Just dominant. There's no other word. Dominant. So, yeah, of course, I gave him the bonus for most valuable fighter. Before we take our break, we will move over to The Ultimate Fighter Season 30, Episode 10. And a little bit of a shorter recap this time because this was actually a bit of a longer fight. I think they must, yeah, they moved on to 3-round fights this time. There was no coaches challenge this time. So there really wasn't a whole lot that went on. Last week, of course, we saw the first heavyweight quarterfinal or semifinal. That was won by Zach Pauga, of course, getting an amazing finish over Jordan Heiderman. Not even close, just amazing by Zach Pauga. Looked very, very good. And this episode was the first women's flyweight semifinal. That was between Brogan Walker from Team Nunes and Laura Gallardo from Team Pena. And I should have mentioned the last one was Zach Pauga and Heiderman. Both of those were Team Pena. So Pena already had one in the finals for the heavyweights. So this one, Brogan Walker, Laura Gallardo, actually, I believe it's actually Gallardo. I thought it was Gallardo. That would be me being a white man that's looking at Gallardo, Gallardo. But that is, of course, Gallardo, and I will remember that if I can. I'm usually pretty good at pronouncing, so I usually remember these kinds of things. Anyway, Gallardo. If you missed the earlier episodes, Gallardo joined after, I believe, Chantel Coates was forced to leave due to the weight cutting issues. And she ended up having a fantastic performance against Catherine Paprocki, winning by majority decision, which was a little bit weird. And after getting switched out of that fight, it was actually with Gallardo. It was actually Brogan Walker who then pulled out, of course, because of the knee injury, had to be switched out of that matchup. Well, it didn't have to be. I mean, it was still a choice. They did have the choice to keep going, but the team, obviously, Coach Nunes decided to pull her out and replace, of course, with who ended up being Paprocki. Anyway, and Brogan Walker did overcome that knee injury in the first round and beat Hanagai in a somewhat controversial, I would say, 2-round decision. Should have probably gone on to the third round. I think everybody thought it was going to go to a third round because it was 1-1. Seemed pretty clear. So a little bit of a weird one, but what can you do? What can you do? The judges ended it. That's what they do sometimes. So that is how both of them made it to this semifinal. And she did admit that she was struggling in training with her knee. So it looked a little bit touch and go going into this fight too. And like I said, no coaches challenge this week. Instead, they actually both teams watched UFC 272, and Pena's team actually went to Pena's house. I don't think it was actually her house. It was more just that the UFC gave it to her so she could be coaching, obviously, coaching the teams like that. Very nice house, of course. So very nice of Pena to do that. I would have done it too, to be honest. I'm just like that too. Nunes, not so much, did not do that. I don't want to point that out, but she didn't. It's true. Anyway, yeah, so they all watched UFC 272 together, team bonding, yay. After that, of course, then they had the fight. And Gallardo stole the momentum early, ran in, pinned Walker along the fence. Walker pushed her off, but Gallardo did come back in, did it again. But after that, Brogan seemed to really catch on to Gallardo's rhythm and started to do some great work with her striking. It was a pretty dead even round, I gotta say. Both of them had their moments of control, but I gave it to Walker because she was doing a bit of extra damage. It was very close, but the damage, and we've been talking about that in the scoring, the damage is what matters most. That is what they keep saying. So you had to give that to Walker, and Dana White did agree, by the way. We'll talk about that after. Second round, Brogan kept that pressure going in the second round, walked Gallardo down the whole time. With a minute left in the round, Gallardo finally got some action going again with her grappling. But I mean, it was with a minute left, so it still seemed like Walker took the round with all that pressure. I mean, seriously, walking her down the entire time, and some pretty good striking going too. So to me, 2 rounds up for not Gallardo, for Brogan Walker at that point. Gallardo came in pretty hot at the start of the final round, like we knew she needed to. I mean, really. But as the round went on, Walker did start to land some heavier combos, and thanks to those heavy shots, a pretty clear final round for Brogan Walker as well. Judges agreed. I don't know if they actually gave the scores, but they did give a unanimous decision win to Brogan Walker there. And Dana also agreed, and he actually agreed with me scoring at 30-27. I thought that was, and he said the same thing. It was close the first round, but he gave it to Walker as well. I totally agree. 30-27. And you know what? Gallardo, very, very good. But really, the only problem she had is just the size. The size of Walker is just way too much. I mean, Gallardo apparently normally competes at 115. And you know what? I think she would do fantastic at 115. I really do. And I'm sure she'll be back in the UFC at 115, but 125, maybe just a little bit too much. Whereas Walker, very much a 125er. There is no way she is ever making 115. She is very big. And that was pretty obvious as soon as they stepped into the octagon. In fact, it was actually pretty clear even at the weigh-ins because Gallardo weighed in at 124, which is 2 pounds lighter than the limit. Whereas Brogan Walker, I forgot the name for a second, came in at 126. So, it just makes sense. The size was just a little bit too much. And Walker is also very good, so that didn't help either. But considering really the fact that Walker has still did that well, very, very well, very good in the fight, still did that well, even with those knee issues, she's got a very, very good chance of winning this show for real, especially with all that time off. I mean, if this was at UFC 272, I looked it up. That was in March. So she's got March, April, May, June, and maybe all of July as well. 5 months to recover and practice, get better, and also recover that knee, of course. Yeah, she's going to be dangerous. She's very, very good. So I can't wait to see how that turns out. Next episode, we will go back for the last heavyweight matchup of the season. That is Mohammed Usman, and I always forget the other guy's name, Eduardo Perez. Both of them the number one picks for each team. The number one pick for Nunes, of course, being Perez, and the number one pick for Pena, Mohammed Usman. So very, very interesting fight there. I can't wait to see how that goes down. I don't even know. I honestly don't even really know which way I'm leaning on this one. Usman was very good and is well-rounded, but maybe struggled a little bit more. Whereas Eduardo Perez, very, very good. So maybe I'm leaning towards Perez on this. I don't know. Very, very close, but I can't wait. It's going to be good. Yeah, with that, we will take a short break. And then, of course, we will talk about UFC Vegas 58. And that is RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos, and the other Rafael. Can you believe it? 2 Rafaels in one main event. Insane. Against Fiziev, of course. So we will be right back right after this.
Allow me to introduce High Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a f***ing hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating victory or drinking to defeat, High Stick Vodka is better after every shot. Visit us at highstickvodka.com. It also comes in this regular bottle. Celebrate victory. Drink responsibly.
And we are back. I've just got to get Bet99 up in the back for the odds there. There we go. Okay. So we will open up with the main card, as always, as it stands right now, at least. And it opens up with Michael Johnson and Jamie Malarkey. Very interesting matchup, I got to say. I mean, we just saw Michael Johnson. He beat, of course, finally, after a pretty lengthy losing streak there, finally beat Alain Patrick, looked very good, and that was in May. And he is already back trying to grab another win against Jamie Malarkey. And Malarkey, kind of opposite situation. He was doing very well with a win over Kamaworthy and Devontae Smith, but then lost to Jalen Turner in his last appearance, which again makes sense because now we know just how incredible Jalen Turner is. I would say this is fairly close. It's definitely not horribly one-sided, but I'm definitely leaning towards the younger Jamie Malarkey on this one because he is very, very strong. He's very quick. Oh, actually, no. I didn't write my notes the same way this time, so this might be a little rough. I'm just gonna say that in advance. Michael Johnson, very quick. Did get hit pretty bad by Patrick. Wasn't really great in the clinch. Does get kicked a lot. And then on the other side, Malarkey, amazing stand-up. I mean, seriously, so good stand-up. Pretty good power. Lots of strength in takedowns too. And it's that well-roundedness, I would say, that is going to get Malarkey, I would say, even a finish at this point. If not a finish, probably a pretty dominant decision. But yeah, it's the power, definitely the power, the pressure, the kicks, the elbows, he's a lunatic in the clinch too. So, I mean, considering Johnson struggles in the clinch, he gets kicked a lot, like heavy kicks like that by Malarkey. They're not going to go well with somebody like Johnson. He is going to probably fade pretty quick with those kicks. I almost tongue twisted that up. So yeah, I'm going Malarkey by finish. It is going to be close. It's going to be an interesting fight. Very fun to watch. But I'm giving Malarkey a finish on this one. And you know what Johnson would say to that? Malarkey. Lol. Anyway, terrible joke. The odds on this one. Oh, yeah, right. Of course. Banner, please. There it is. Johnson plus 190. Malarkey minus 240. I would say that's maybe a little bit generous, that it should probably be a little bit closer, like maybe minus 180-ish for Malarkey, but still minus 240, still I would even put that in a parlay. I'm comfortable enough to do that. Just that power, the power and the striking ability, even though Johnson is fast, he's going to struggle with that insane power of Malarkey, especially considering Malarkey is very, very tough because he got hit a lot by Turner and lasted a pretty long time. So there's no way that Johnson's going to land anything, I would say, that really threatens any kind of a finish for Malarkey. So yeah, with the power and the durability there, Malarkey, clear way to go, especially with a parlay on this one. I really do think so. The over-under, plus 140 for over, minus 180 for under 2.5. I would say that's pretty fair, like I said, with the minus 180, leaning towards that for sure. If you think Johnson can tough it out, plus 140 is pretty insane, actually. I mean, for a 2.5, it's not terrible. It's not terrible to take advantage of, maybe sprinkle a couple of bucks, but I would say the safer bet is probably the minus 190 at under 2.5 here. Then we've got two heavyweights. Probably, I don't want to be mean here, but probably two of the worst heavyweights around, besides the ones that we saw a couple weeks ago, being Parisian and Bordeaux. These two are equally as bad, I would say, except for Vandera. Vandera's got a little bit of redeeming qualities here, which is why I think he's the pretty clear choice going into this. Like I said, this one actually really reminds me pretty easily, actually, of Josh Parisian and Alain Bordeaux. Neither one of them has really done anything at all in the UFC. Probably they're both of their last shots at staying here. Vandera grabbed his contract in 2020 from the Contender Series. Been very active, but not very successful. 1-4 with a win over Justin Tafa, and losses to Spivak, Romanov, Arlovsky, and Olenek, who are all pretty good opponents. So, it's not like he's, they're not terrible opponents. It's just, it's 1-4. It's just not good. It's just not good. And they really weren't really all that close fights in general either. And Sherman actually has the exact same record, 1-4. So these guys are basically identical, with a win over Ike Villanueva in his debut, and then lost 4 in a row to Arlovsky, Porter, Collier, and Romanov. And as you may have noticed from that list of names, they've fought a lot of similar people too, of course. They both fought Arlovsky and they both fought Romanov. And yeah, that's it. That's it, actually. But yeah, still. But yeah, there seems to be just there's a fairly significant difference between the two, really. I mean, Vandera is bigger, so he has the size advantage, but not only that, he's actually, I would say, faster than Sherman. I mean, he's kind of quick. Sherman is also kind of quick, but I would say Vandera is probably about the same speed, but he does have the weight advantage. Great takedown defense. I don't think that's going to come into play at all, but yeah, great takedown defense. Very good in the clinch, actually. Very durable. My God, Vanderaa might be one of the most durable people I've ever seen. Bleeding everywhere. One of the bloodiest fights I've ever seen, actually. I rewatched it again. Vanderaa and Justin Tafa. And he actually ended up winning that fight, even though he was covered in blood. But not a whole lot of power. Not a whole lot of power on this guy, and not really a whole lot of power on Sherman either. But he does have good kicks. On the Sherman side, he gets hit a lot, like a lot, kind of quick, which is funny because he's quick, but he still gets hit a lot, and not a whole lot of power either. So this is one of the rare one of the rare heavyweight fights where it's like, I think we're kind of headed towards a decision here because neither one of them really has a lot of power. But yeah, pretty clear choice, I would say, for Vanderaa. I mean, he's got the weight advantage. He could probably easily clinch up with Sherman, maybe even take him down and do some wrestling. Easily pick him apart on the feet with the extra power too. Yeah, I would just say Vanderaa is the clear choice here, even though, again, neither one of them is necessarily that good. Vanderaa minus 209 right now. I would say that's pretty fair. Sherman plus 162. And the over-under, I would say, very much favors exactly what I've just been saying, actually. I mean, favors us betting it. Let's just say that. Because the over 2.5, I mean, makes sense for a heavyweight fight, but not necessarily in this matchup. So we could really take advantage of this one. Plus 133. Plus 133 for over 2.5. I get that for heavyweights, and it is a little bit, I wouldn't say it's a mismatch because they're both, again, not very good, but I get it because Vanderaa is bigger and Sherman gets hit a lot. So that's not a good combination. But considering neither one of them really has a whole lot of power, I could very much easily see this going over 2.5. So plus 133, definitely worth that risk there. And minus 172, definitely for the under. I mean, that is definitely not worth doing there. So if you want to do some action on that one, put a couple bucks on the over at plus 133. I think that's pretty clear just specifically in this heavyweight matchup, because you don't normally see heavyweight matchups where I'll say that. Then we've got a very, very good one here. Oh my God. This is a very exciting matchup. And really, it's the last 3 fights of the night that look really good. The other ones on the card, meh. It's not really one of those cards where it's like, oh, this is going to be insane. Like, there's a lot of high-profile matchups. Like, no, not really. But the last 3 fights on this card look very, very good. I'm so excited for all 3 of these, really. And this one starts it off. It's Said Nurmagomedov. No relation to Khabib. I always have to point that out because I thought it was at first, and a lot of people think that, of course, because it's obviously not the most common last name, especially not in fighting, obviously. But no, he is not related to Khabib or Umar, obviously. Going against Douglas Silva de Andrade, which probably is the longest name on the entire UFC roster. And Nurmagomedov is also pretty long too. So this matchup is insane just on the names alone. Said debuted in 2018, has gone 4-1 since then. 3 first-round finishes. 3 first-round finishes along the way over Ricardo Ramos, Mark Striegel, and most recently, and definitely the most insane one, Cody Stamann. That was unbelievable what he did to Cody Stamann. Silva de Andrade doesn't really have the impressive UFC record. He sits at 6-4, but he has competed against some of the best bantamweights in the UFC. He's beaten Chito, Henan Barao, Sergey Morozov, but he did lose to Piotr Jan, Rob Font, and Lerone Murphy, who are very, very good. So you can really tell how good de Andrade really is here. So I will say this is a lot closer than the odds suggested. And I'm not even sure if I really want to put this in the main parlay. I probably won't. I would probably put this on the longer parlay because I really do think De Andrade can do it here because he is that good. He is very, very good. Saeed, he's got insane kicks. He's actually reminds me a lot of Umar. He's very close to the same because Umar also has those insane kicks, and Saeed will throw them up just as quick, just as insane anywhere. Like he's so good at it. He's very fast, moves a lot, and has obviously, of course, insane wrestling, like truly unbelievable wrestling. Yeah. And on the other side, you've got Silva de Andrade. He is probably the biggest bantamweight I've ever seen. How he makes 135, no idea. Absolutely no idea. Just huge, huge. He's a little slow, though. And that is part of the reason why you've got to go with Saeed. And then, of course, he is very tough, but he did get hit a lot by Murphy. I don't think that'll necessarily come into play a whole lot. I mean, obviously the striking, the kicks, and all that could lead into the takedowns for Saeed. But yeah, obviously what Saeed's going to be looking for, of course, is the takedowns there. And you know what? Silva de Andrade is good on the ground, but he was actually kind of out wrestled by Murphy. So if he was out wrestled by Murphy, seems like he's going to be fairly easily out wrestled by Saeed. So although it is close, I am definitely going with the heavy favorite on this one, Saeed. And I do think he probably did I say finish? Really? I might have to get back to you on that one. I might have to post about that one again. It'll be in the article anyway, my true choice. I thought I may have gone by decision, but maybe I did say finish because of that wrestling. But yeah, definitely going with Saeed on this one, Nurmagomedov. And if you go over to the odds, like I said, minus 313 for Nurmagomedov, of course, plus 240 for De Andrade. I really do think it should be closer, but I'm definitely not saying you should put a lot of money on De Andrade, even though I do think it's close. No, like Saeed's just too good on the ground to be beaten like that. I don't know. It's just the power that Silva has is a little bit of, it makes it a little bit more even and more interesting for sure. The over-under on this one, over 2.5, plus 110, under minus 140. I mean, there's definitely a distinct possibility that this could go over. So you definitely could go at plus 110. You could easily go with that. Maybe safer would be to go with the under at minus 140. But they're both pretty tough. So if you want to throw a few bucks at the over, plus 110, might be the time to do it. And bantamweight, statistically speaking, does have a lot of decisions too. Both of these guys are tough, so it's definitely not out of the question for sure. The co-main, to a casual viewer, they might not know who either one of these guys are, but seriously, this matchup is so good, and I cannot wait to see it. I'm so excited. I really am. Caio Borralho, he's so good. Going against Armen Petrosian. Borralho did have a bit of a rough start to his UFC journey. Failed to grab the contract on the Contender Series the first time around. Came back a couple weeks later. Turned it around with a sensational performance. Got the contract there and hasn't looked back since. Just absolutely destroyed, dominated an undefeated opponent, Gaji Omar Gadzhiev, in his debut. Yeah, looked phenomenal. Seriously. I mean, yes, he made a mistake and it ended up in a technical decision because of I forget what it was, but yeah, it did end up in a technical decision there because of a mistake by Kaio. But make no mistake, he was very much dominating before that happened. And also from the Contender Series, you've got Petrosian, made his debut earlier this year, won a very narrow split decision over Gregory Rodriguez that I would say he probably didn't necessarily win. I mean, it was pretty close, but yeah, it was questionable. To me though, although it is very close, they both have a chance. I do think that Bohalio has a clear advantage in this matchup. He's very fast, great striking. Um, and insane wrestling. Seriously, unbelievable wrestling. And I think that really is going to make the massive difference in this fight. And that's the problem. But he does get hit a lot. Didn't really flinch at all in any of the matchups yet, but he does get hit. So there's always a chance that he could get stumbled a bit. But I still think pretty clear choice here would be Kyle Bohalio. As for Petrosian, he does have decent power, lots of movement, but he did get hit a lot by Rodriguez, and Rodriguez is not necessarily the fastest guy. Great kicks, pretty tough, but he was taken down very easily in both of his fights so far. He is very flexible, though. Very flexible. Great ground defense. Because like Rodriguez was literally folded him in half, and it was one of the most insane things I've ever seen. But he didn't tap or anything, so yeah, very flexible. But anyway, I still think Bohalio is going to get a finish here. He's just way too good. I would say the clear way to go, like I said, Petrosian, easy to take down. He's just going to jump in there, push for the takedown. Well, he's probably going to pick him apart a little bit on the feet first, but then shoot for that takedown and either win a dominant decision doing that 3 rounds in a row, or he's going to get the finish. I'm going for the finish, though, on this one. I really am. Either by submission or maybe some ground and pound in there. But yeah, I'm definitely going with Bohalio by finish on this one. Minus 225 right now for Bohalio. Petrosian plus 180. You know, like these odds are, I would say, a little bit out of control. Like they're a little bit higher than I would say they should be. But yeah, minus 225, still very much worth it. And I would even maybe put that in, that longer parlay. Yeah, put him in one of those longer parlays. But yeah, that's what I'm doing for that one. The over under on this one, 1.5 rounds, minus 167 for over 1.5, under 1.5 plus 130 right now. That might be one that I might stay away from because those numbers just aren't great, because that I would say that is pretty close to about when I think you're going to see a finish, is about in the second round. So is he going to get in the start of the second round or the end of the first and the end of the second round? I don't know. It's going to be pretty tight. So I would probably stay away from the over under on this one if I had to pick one, because he is this good. Maybe you go with the under because it is plus 130. If it's that dead even, because I do think there's probably a second round finish in there, maybe you go with that under, but it's so close. It really is so close. So maybe you want to stay away from the over under on this one. But if you had to pick one, why not go with the plus 130? That's how I see it. Yeah, because if you get it, plus 130, incredible odds. If you lose it, no harm, no foul, really. The main event then, RDA, Rafael dos Anjos, and the other Rafael in this case, Rafael Fiziev. Who would have thought you'd see 2 Rafaels in a fight, let alone the main event? That is crazy. And this one to me is by far the best matchup of the night. Even though, like I said, Deandrade Nurmagomedov, great matchup. Kaio, Arman, great matchup. But this one, sensational. And this was supposed to happen before too. Multiple times it was canceled actually. Um so RDA trying to shut down Fiziev as he's just catapulting himself up the top 15 right now. RDA staple of the UFC in general, really. A top 15 in welterweight and lightweight, been all over the place, fought everybody in both divisions. Super good, like insanely good. He's beaten some of the best people. He's beaten Felder, Lawler, Magny, Pettis, Diaz, and he's also lost to some of the best. He lost to Khabib, Ferguson, Covington, Usman, and Edwards. So, he's lost to the best and he's beaten some of the best. So just insane. I mean, he's so good and so experienced. On the other side, obviously, Fiziev, not even close to as experienced. Really, who is as experienced as RDA? There's not a whole lot of people. And he's been around since 2008, by the way. How insane is that? Been in the UFC since 2008. Fiziev, much newer, of course. Came into this record, though, with an MMA record of 11-1. So impressed. I mean, that's crazy. And his only loss came to Magomed Mustafayev from a spinning back kick in the first round, like a minute into the fight. I'm not going to say that was a fluke, but it was probably somewhat of a fluke that he just absolutely did not see that one coming, got dropped with it, and then that was it. So, that's not a terrible way to just lose. Anyway, but comes into this with five straight wins. His most recent win, of course, over Riddell. We talked about that. Yeah. Oh, and then, of course, he actually had a pretty similar thing to Bobby Green, who is another sensational striker. So the fact that he's actually just wildly outstriking Bobby Green and Riddell, and actually RDA's last opponent too, Renato Moicano. I mean, he just wildly outstruck all three of them and actually ended up finishing both Riddell and Moicano. Moicano was actually a first round finish. And RDA himself actually did not finish him. And that was in his last fight. Got a decision win over Moicano. So that should maybe tell you a little bit where I'm going towards this one. It is very close. Don't let these odds fool you, or what I'm about to say fool you. It's very, very close. RDA always has a chance to win, no matter who he's fighting. And this is no different. Yeah, so for RDA, he did get hit a lot. He got hit a lot by Felder and Moicano. Got hit a lot in both of those scenarios, but he just kind of took it. Didn't really get phased too much by it. And apparently he's actually never been knocked down. He is the only person who the only person who has not been knocked down outside of Holloway. So that should really tell you how good RDA is at taking a punch. But he does get hit a lot, and Fiziev is not the kind of guy that you want to be hit by that much. He does have great wrestling. He has decent striking. He really does. But he didn't finish Moicano. And of course, being in so many 5-round fights, he has got insane cardio and insane pace and can keep that up for 5 rounds straight, no problem. And that is the one reason why people should really be taking RDA a little bit more seriously in this matchup, because it is 5 rounds. And although Fiziev hasn't really slowed down in 3 rounds, he's never gone to that 5th round in the UFC. So we don't know how he's going to be, especially against somebody as intense as RDA. On the other side, Fiziev did finish Moicano in the first round. Like I said, he's very big. He's huge. So he's got a lot of power, insane kicks, probably the best kicks I've ever seen. I mean, he's just unbelievable at kicking. Lots of moving, very fast, very precise, and doesn't really get hit a whole lot. Pretty insane 3-round cardio, I have to say. He keeps that up for all 3 rounds. I don't really know how he would go in the 4th and 5th round, but I would imagine he'd still be a lot to deal with in the 4th and 5th round, I should say. And it's also because of his intelligence. He is a very, very smart. He actually is. I found out watching one of his last fights, rewatching it yesterday, that he is actually one of the coaches at Tiger Muay Thai, which is insane. That is insane because Tiger Muay Thai is easily top 3 in gyms for striking. I mean, you've got of course, City Kickboxing, but then you've got Tiger Muay Thai, and they're both very good. I would even say Tiger Muay Thai might be the best gym. So the fact that he's teaching people striking at probably the best striking gym on the planet, that should tell you how good Fiziev is at striking, which is why I'm actually going with Fiziev by finish here. Maybe. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm going towards the finish. I put it on Tapology. I put it on a 4th or a 5th round finish. It's very close. But because RDA gets hit so much, I think this is going to be the first time that it starts to be a problem, because Fiziev is probably one of the best strikers in the entire UFC, honestly, on the entire planet. That is how good Fiziev is at striking. So if you get hit that much by somebody that technical, that good, that powerful, it's going to be a problem. So I think this is going to be the first time for sure that RDA gets knocked down. I think he's going to get knocked down for sure. Is he going to get finished? I don't know, but I really do think he's going to get knocked down. And if Fiziev doesn't get a finish, he should be able to win at least 3 rounds fairly easily. And then in the 4th and 5th round, maybe that's when RDA starts to regain and get some grappling going, and then win on the cards the last 2 rounds. That's kind of what I think. That's really the only way that RDA can win this. He's not finishing Fiziev. Let's be honest here. So yeah, his only chance is to grind out and win 3 of those 5 rounds. That is RDA's only chance at winning this fight. That's it. So yeah, Fiziev either by decision or by a finish. I'm actually going out on a limb and saying the finish though. The odds, plus 180 for RDA, minus 225 for Fiziev. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Actually, I would still, like I said before, I still think that's a little bit unfair to RDA because he really easily does have a chance. And like I said, all he has to do, win 3 rounds on the cards. If you can survive and win 3 rounds on the cards, you will win this fight. That's all he has to do. So it's definitely plausible. But that being said, again, I am going with Fiziev. The over-under on this is at 4.5 rounds because, of course, they know RDA is not going to finish Fiziev. I think that's pretty much out of the question at this point. And they also think, well, RDA has never been dropped, let alone been finished by strikes. So it kind of makes sense. If you go with both of their histories and the odds on that, it makes a lot of sense, of course, to go with the over 4.5 at minus 172. But because RDA gets hit that much and Fiziev is that good of a striker, I really do think he's going to grab a finish. I really, really do. So, I mean, at plus 133, you might as well put a couple bucks on it. Don't go crazy. Don't put 20, 50 bucks. I mean, maybe 20 if you got the money. But don't be putting 50 or 100 bucks on this unless you've got serious cash to burn. Like, no, like $5 on this, maybe. That's what I would do on this. But, for the plus 133 there. But it's a close one on that front. It is. Now we've got the prelims. There's only two that I'm going to talk about today because, to be honest, the prelims aren't looking all that interesting. I mean, there's a lot of um, Contender Series alum and a lot of Ultimate Fighter alum, actually. They've got Ricky Tercios back. They've got Trayshawn Gore back. And we're going to talk about somebody who is on the Contender Series, Ronnie Lawrence, just now. But yeah, there's a lot of those kind of matchups, which is cool for somebody, especially like me, who watches all of the other ones. I watch all the Contender Series and the Ultimate Fighter. So I love those matchups, and the huge UFC fans in general love those matchups. But, for somebody who's more casual, they would have, they wouldn't necessarily relate to any of these people at all. So there's not a whole lot of matchups like that on this card. So the only one I'm going to talk, well, the first one I'm going to talk about is Ronnie Lawrence and Said Yakub Kakramanov. Very interesting matchup. I'm actually really excited about this one. And I would say this is the fourth most interesting matchup behind, of course, the last three ones on the card that we already talked about. So Ronnie Lawrence, both of these guys are actually pretty new to the UFC. Lawrence earned his contract on the Contender Series and has opened up with two very, very nice wins so far. Kakramanov, only one fight into his UFC career, but made a statement beating Trevin Jones, who is very good, actually. So that was quite a statement. This is going to be very close, and it's close in the odds too. It's very interesting. It's very close, and it's going to be a great fight. By the way, this opens up the card. This is the first card of the first fight on the card, and it looks really good. I really think this is one of the top matchups. But I'm leaning slightly, ever so slightly, towards Lawrence by decision on this one. It's very close. Both of them, like I said, fairly new to the UFC. Oh, actually, I already said all that. Lawrence, he's got a lot of movement, moves a lot, has great kicks all over the place, great at kicking, and he has incredible takedowns. I mean, his takedowns are insane. And, he's got decent striking. He's got the power. He did drop Mana Martinez multiple times. I think it was 3 or 4 times. And he actually, he didn't get the finish though, but he dropped him multiple times. And but he also got dropped bad, like very, very bad by Mana Martinez, to the point where it actually looked like he was maybe gonna get finished there. But he did recover with his wrestling. The only problem with his wrestling, yes, he's got the takedowns, but he can't keep them down, which is a problem. In general, that's a problem. Kakramanov also moves a lot, insane wrestling, but he did get controlled a bit by Trevin Jones, and he got taken down by a tired Trevin Jones. So even though he does have good wrestling, he does get taken down fairly easily, especially as the fight goes on. He does have good striking too, but he really only finished Jones because Jones got extremely tired and just couldn't keep it up anymore, and just couldn't stand up to who was I talking about? Kakramanov at that point. So because I would say he has the better cardio, and he's a little bit more well-rounded in the striking and the wrestling a little bit, it's very close, and they both do have a chance, but I'm going with Lawrence by decision by decision on this one. No finishes here, I don't think. The odds, -143 for Lawrence. I'm not putting that in a parlay, that is for sure, but -143 does look very good. Kakramanov +116. The over-under on this one, 2.5 rounds, of course, -193 for over, +150 for under. I'm going to go with the clear choice on this one, which is the over, -193. I think that's the pretty clear way to go on this. Then we've got the last one I want to talk about. We're actually talking about the opening prelim and the closing prelim, the featured prelim, which is Cynthia Calvillo. It's the only ranked women's fight of the night. Cynthia Calvillo and Nina Nunes, but interestingly, not part of the same division. They are fighting at 125, where Calvillo is ranked. Calvillo is ranked 11th in the flyweight division at 125 and had a pretty incredible start to her career, really, with a record of 9-1-1, which is very good, especially in the women's side. That is very good at 9-1-1, but sadly has now dropped to 9-4-1 with 3 straight losses. She lost to Chukagian. I mean, that makes sense. Andrade also makes sense. And Andrea Lee in her last one, which was actually a pretty dominant win by Andrea Lee. She looked very good in that one. So yeah, but you know what? Again, top contenders, very, very good. And top contenders at 125, who are very large, by the way. Not necessarily Andrade, but Andrade is just, well, she's Andrade. She's incredible. So that would make sense. But Chukagian used her length to win. And Andrea Lee used her strength and her size to win. Nunes, not really the same level of success. Gone 4-4 in the UFC. She's beaten pretty impressive people, though, like Angela Hill, Randa Marcos, and Claudia Gadelia, but dropped her last 2 fights to Tatiana Suarez and Mackenzie Dern, who, of course, also are very good themselves. Like I said, Calvillo struggled with the length of Chukagian. Didn't really ever get hit bad. She just couldn't get in to land anything because Chukagian's just that good and that long. That's just what happens to when people fight Chukagian. She's got good takedowns, but did struggle with the pace and the power of Lee. And of course, that strength, that size. Struggled a little bit. So that's kind of why she lost the last few. And I'm not sure that applies to this one, which is why I actually am leaning towards Calvillo on this one. But again, it is pretty close. Of course, again, being a women's fight, they're always very, very close. Nunes, she does get hit a lot. She does have good takedown defense, but which is funny, I say this, but she does have good takedown defense most of the time, but she does get taken down quite a bit. It just takes a lot of effort and skill to get her down. That's all. And she has okay stand-up, but she gets pressured pretty easily. There's a lot of movement there. Yeah, I don't know. But to me, it really comes down to the size. Calvillo, like I said, struggled with length and power, and Nina Nunes just doesn't have either one of those things. So, I think Calvillo wins a pretty, I wouldn't say an easy decision, but a clear unanimous decision on this one. I really do think so. Probably a 30-27 for Calvillo, but Nunes has a chance, but yeah, that's where I'm going on this one. And the odds follow that pretty closely. Calvillo -155, and Nunes +125. So clear choice here. Calvillo at -155, thanks to that that extra size there. And like I said, I mean, if she's struggling, if Nunes is struggling with 155, 115 pounders, wow, I'm stumbling. If she struggles with straw weights, and they're grappling, you're definitely going to struggle with somebody who's 10 pounds heavier than that and who's actually fairly big at 125. So yeah, that's going to be a problem. That's how I see it going. Lots of grappling for Calvillo, probably some fairly heavy combos in there as well, with Nunes probably landing some decent combos in there eventually, but not enough to win. Over 2.5, -217. I mean, that's a no-brainer, obviously. So that's the clear way to go with that. I mean, another women's fights almost always go to decision. So that's a pretty clear one right there. especially since neither one of them really has too much of an avenue for a finish on this one. The under plus 166 for under 2.5. No. No. So yeah, we'll talk about the parlays now. Those are all the fights I want to talk about. We'll quickly talk about the parlays and then we will head out. So, honestly, there's not a whole lot of them this time because there's a lot of really close matchups, specifically on the prelims. And that's actually another reason why I didn't talk about the prelims as much, because they're all so close that they really could go either way at this point. So, I mean, my Tercios is the biggest favorite on the prelims at minus 200. But I can't say I'm confident enough that he's going to win. I mean, he was good, but he won the Ultimate Fighter by split decision. And Zahabi is pretty good himself. So I'm not even sure if I would put that on a parlay. Yeah, I don't know. You might have to just stick to the main card. Because the main card may be a little bit more fleshed out. Malarkey at minus 240. That's a good option. Vandera at minus 209. That's a good option. I even said Saeed minus 313. That's a good option for the longer parlay even. Kaio at minus 225. You could maybe argue that. You could maybe do that. And then Fiziev at minus 225. You could maybe argue that too. This just really isn't a week for parlays necessarily. At least in this kind of scenario. You could definitely go towards some over-under parlays. I mean, let's say what's a good one here? I mean, obviously the women going 2.5 for over 2.5 rounds, minus 217 for Calvillo and Nunes. That's a pretty clear way to do a parlay. You could do a couple of those. Who's another one here? Shevchenko and Courtney Casey, minus 234 for over 2.5. Those make sense. So you might even want to do more over unders in the parlays instead of picking winners on this one. That's my advice for this one. But yeah, we've got actually a pretty busy one next week, I think. We've got UFC Vegas 58, of course, and then I think it's UFC Long Island. Is it Long Island next week? I think it is. Plus, of course, the Ultimate Fighter, of course. We've got the last heavyweight semifinal. And then we've actually got the BFL. BFL is on tomorrow. That is Thursday night. So I'm pretty sure I'll be watching it, which means I will be including it in Sunday's article, hopefully, and also talking about it next stream, possibly. I don't know, because that's going to be a pretty long stream if we do that, because again, we've got Vegas 58, we've got BFL, we've got Long Island, and we've got the Ultimate Fighter. So I don't know. We might have to, I don't know what we're going to do. We might have to cut it short on some of them. I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, that's what we've got for next week. So it's a pretty busy week for us. Anyway, that is it for me. Area 51 has got you covered for all the other sports. That's in the link below. All of my socials are also in the link below. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, multiple YouTubes, of course. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you next time. There it is. See you next time. Thanks for watching.